Hello everyone, how are we all doing today? My name is Josh and this is my workshop. And today I thought I'd show you how to build a planter for under a tenner. Right then, should we get into it? Look, I understand more than most because this is my business, how difficult it is to get hold of timber, how expensive tools can be, how expensive, the whole game is becoming more and more expensive. And what I don't want to do is I don't want that to push everybody out, right? I think it's so important to get younger generations involved, people involved who have never done anything like this. So this is why I'm starting to try and do a little series here on cheap builds. And we're going to start off with this planter. Now, I've managed to source the material for this planter for under £10, right? I went to my local builder's yard, or my local independent timber merchants, I should say, and I managed to pick up some 1x4 rough sawn, which is used for joist bracing, and I used some 1x2 battening, which is used for running along the sides, and then you connect all your tiles to it. Obviously, timber is really expensive, but because these are used in construction all the time, and there's loads of it made, loads of it sawn, it's going to be low in price. You can go to big box stores, so like Wickes, B&Q, those sorts of places, and they used to be really cheap. They're not as cheap anymore. Surprisingly, I did 3 calculations. So I did my local timbers merchants, which was under a tenner. I did Wickes, which came to £13.82, and my local Travis Perkins was about £14.80. So this video is for anybody, basically, whether you want to use my plans to sell planters, whether you're going to do something as a fun project with your grandkids. It's Father's Day soon, so this is a wonderful project to do with the kids, right? Great thing to do, but especially mum, if you can set dad up with a couple tools and some timber, it's going to be a happy chap, right? So the point of the video is to do it with minimal tools, right? I want this to be as accessible to as many people as possible. So when I'm talking about minimal tools, I'm talking about a drill, I'm talking about a tape measure, pencil, some drill bits. We're going to use a 6mm and a 3mm today. A single box of screws, because screws are expensive. So these are 4x50s, which is basically 2 inch by 8 if you're working in old money. A little bit of sandpaper, an old saw. This saw is like old, so it's not the sharpest saw in the bunch, but it'll work. And some wood glue. When we're talking about wood glue, I am talking about cheap wood glue. It doesn't have to be Titebond, doesn't have to be expensive. This glue that I have here is 502. You can get that 5 litres of it for 25 quid. Obviously, you're not going to need that, so you can go 500ml, which I think is like £6 or £7 at the moment. I would recommend you pop into your local tool supply store, especially an independent one, because they are normally cheaper than a lot of your bigger places. And it's always important to shop local, right? It's always important to support local businesses. So if we're going to the timber, we go to the local timbers merchant. If we're looking for tools, we're looking for glue, we go to the local tool supply. Something that's really important to remember, right? I've said we're going to use 1x2 for the legs and the top, and we're going to use 1x4 for the rest of the paneling. If you can't get hold of it, doesn't matter. Use something that works, okay? I pride myself on having a bunch of timber and trying to make something out of that. I think that's the most enjoyable thing, and especially if you're working with kids, that's really when you're going to create that spark with them, right? So I think that's really important. Like, you might find the battening and it might be 19x38. That'll work. You might find the timber boards are not 1 inch, they're 22mm. Not going to matter, right? You might find something else that's going to work. You might use treated board. It might be cheaper for you to get a treated board locally. I went to go buy a whole bunch of gravel boards, which are normally 3.6 metres long. They turned around and they said, hey, look, we've got these ones. They were cut wrong. They're 1.75 metres long. Do you want them? They're like a third of the price. I was like, yeah, give them here, I'll take them. Saving money, right? So you can make work what you have. Don't think just because you haven't got this specific stuff or this specific timber, you can't make this work. And if you do have any questions about, do you think this timber would work, by all means, chuck them down in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. If you look through the rest of my videos, I really try to answer any questions that people have. So yeah, if you've got a question, chuck it down below. Right then, so this is the timber. So this will normally come in a 2.4 or a 4.8, which is 8 foot or 16 foot lengths. The battening is probably going to come in a 16 foot length. What I tend to do, and obviously remember, right, you don't have to have a van to go and pick this stuff up. I take a saw with me when I get down there and a tape measure, and I'll cut it into 8 foot lengths and then put it in the back of the car. Right, should we have a look at cut this then? Super simple, nice and easy. I have some notes here, so let me double check and make sure I've got the right measurements. So with this battening, right, this 1x2, we're going to have 4 pieces, which are going to be 350mm long. We're going to do them for the tops. and I'll explain something about them in a little bit because there's a couple ways we can do the top there. I'm going to need 8 pieces at 375. They're going to create the legs here. Okay? For the 4x1, which is the wider stuff, we're going to need 6 sections at 300 and 6 sections at 256, and you'll see how they go together to create a 1 foot square box, and then the whole unit is 350 by 350, which is about 14 inches, and it gives you an internal dimension of 10 inches by 10 inches, okay? So, really important when you do this, we're going to measure out a markup, and we're going to use the saw as a square. So I'll show you how to do that if you don't know. Obviously, if you do, you're more than welcome to skip ahead and see what the parts it is that you need. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to measure out 300 mil. I'm going to put a mark there with a pencil, make sure it's a sharp pencil. We're going to use the back end of the saw here and line that up, and then this section here, this line, is going to give you a 90 degree, pretty much 90 degree, good enough for what we're going to do. Then we're going to roll it onto its side. We're going to mark it a little bit there. We're going to mark it down, roll it onto its other side, and we're going to mark it again. We're going to use this to help us, to give us a straight cut basically. Well, you must remember, right? So, I'm going to clamp this to my workbench. If you don't have a clamp, that's absolutely fine. Obviously, that's just stop it wiggling around, because the more it wiggles around, the worse my cut's going to be. Great thing to do is use a child, obviously safely, put a child, sit it on there, somebody stand on it if you lower down to the ground. You just don't want it to be weebling, wobbling around, right? So the clamp is going to hold the back end for me, and I'm going to hold this end. I'm just going to start the saw, roll it back along the line, and then once we've rolled it back along the line, then we can watch on the back here to make sure that we're cutting it straight. There we go, see that? Right then, it's that simple. So I've got 6 to cut at 300, 6 to cut at 256, I think it was. I'll go back and check that. I'm gonna get these cut, and then I'll be back with you. So, 6 of these, 6 of these. All we're gonna do is we're gonna create L's with them, basically. These are gonna go into the inside of here, okay? And then we're going to have another long one at the back and another short one in between. And what that is going to do is, this is 300 mil this way and this is 300 mil this way. All we've done is we've basically done this, right? So this is the long board. We've taken 2 short boards, we've sat them here like this, and this is a way that you can do this if you want to. Marked it there. So this is how much we want to cut off, and that there is 256. Okay, it's that simple. So if you're using a different thickness of timber, then that's how you know what your measurement's going to be, okay? Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to get on with screwing these. Now, like I said, the screws that we've got here are 4x50s. If you can get a couple boxes of screws, I'll probably have maybe some 4x60s and some 4x40s. However, if you can only get one, get the 4x50s, and I'll show you what we're going to do. First off, what we're going to do is we are going to pre-screw these screws into them, so that when we go to join these, look, we can put that one there, make sure this edge along here is flush all the way, right? That's a good way that you're going to figure out that everything's square and vertical. There we go, don't try and countersink it in there too much, because it's towards the end of the timber, so it probably will split. There's, we've got our first L. So I'm going to go through, pre-screw all of these, and then I'll show you how to put them together, okay? If this board does start to split, right, what you might have to do is you might have to pre-drill it. So instead of just screwing the screw in, what you're going to do is you're going to stick that 3mm drill bit in there, pre-drill it so that the screw isn't pushing the timber apart, and then yeah, then it's just going to be nice and easy. Okay, so I've just taken this one apart because I should have put some glue on it. So, the important thing to remember when you're gluing stuff, right, is that the glue probably going to be stronger than the timber around it. As long as you're getting a good glue line in there, and remember, it doesn't need to be clamped super tight so it squeezes all the glue out. We just want it to hold it. There you go, let's see, look, it's not chucking loads of glue out. Right, now I'm going to assemble all of these. Now we've got our L's, we're going to go back round and fit them to the other sides. What we're going to do is short side is going on the inside of the long side. Does that make sense to you? So it's basically like that. We're having the short pieces in the middle and the long pieces on the outside, yeah? You can see, look, it's wanting to twist. That's normal, don't stress about it. We'll figure all that out in a minute. one thing to remember, it might rock a tiny bit, right? But you don't want too much. If you have too much rocking, so just try and make sure that we're nice and square and level and all that sort of stuff. Got our 3 squares now, and they're all going to line up with each other like that to make our pretty little planter. What you're going to do, just run your fingers across it, make sure there's no excess glue. Don't get it on your clothes because it's not going to come off. Definitely don't get it in your hair. Not that I need to be worried about that. But right, so we're going to put them to the side. I'm going to cut the legs. We're going to measure that out to 375. Mark it. Get the saw on it. Mark it. I'm going to get cutting and we'll come back. And we're back. Right, so I've got all my bits and pieces that I need now. So, something to bear in mind with this timber, it is construction grade timber, so it's going to be a little bit furry, okay? It's also going to have a whole bunch of stamps on it. I just tend to put any defects in places where they're not going to be seen, okay? So hide them. So like that there, perfect. What we're going to do with this might be a little bit difficult if you're the first timer. We're going to drill down through here, and then we're going to create a wider hole so that the screw is basically, because we've only got 1 box of screws here, is basically countersunk. So can you see that? It's going to sit about there. Now we don't want to do it, I don't know if you can see that, like that. So we don't want to go too deep because then we're going coming out the bottom, and the whole point of this is so that when this loops round, that hole is on the inside and you don't really see it, yeah? Because we want to have as few fixings as possible. What we are going to do is we're going to get our 3mm bit and check the depth of it, okay? If it comes out the bottom a little bit, that's fine. What we're going to do is, I must have a piece of timber around here somewhere so that we don't drill into the desk, obviously. So all we're going to do, we're going to put this, eyeball it up in the middle, about 30-40mm down from the top. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to eyeball it to be vertical. Doesn't have to be perfect. Go in there. And same on the bottom end. Job's a good one. Now we're going to take the 6mm bit. What we want to do is, again, we probably only want to go in a tiny bit. So I have a little trick here for you. Right, what we're going to do is we're going to say, right, take a piece of tape, we're going to want to go in that much. Okay? We're going to, see that? That's how we're going to do it. Then what we're going to do is when we screw in, we're going to stop when we eyeball the tape touching the top of the timber. We're going to do the same on this side. Cool. So it's just going to be like that, yeah? So I'm going to drill and countersink all of these, and then we'll be back. So we have 4 with holes, 4 without holes. Take one of these, right, and we're going to line it up with the edge of the timber, okay? So like that. So for something where you've got a stamp on it like this, what I would say is, because we're going to sand this outside edge anyway, I'll put that on the outside edge like that, okay? So you see that? Now what we're going to do, lovely bit of 502 on here, give it a wiggle, pop that on there, line that up, give it a wiggle back and forth just to make sure that glue has spread itself across there. Use your finger, feel that that's flush, pop one of the screws in there and watch. Okay, look, and I've set my clutch on my drill to 7, right? It will all depend on the type of drill that you've got, so that when it starts to pull itself into the wood, it stops. The same thing on the back end here. Okay, job's a good one. Now we've got a nice solid joint there because that's full of glue. This portion of the leg to cover that seam, so nobody will know. All right, perfect. Let me go on with the rest of them then. Let me show you something, guys. So where are we at? Right, so a good way to check to make sure this is square. Nope, can't see that. There we go, you can see it. So a good way to make sure this is square, so you do corner to corner. So this corner is 420mm, and we go corner to corner, and this corner is 420mm. So we know that's square. If you hear anybody ever talking about you checking your diagonals, that's what it is. So again, we're at 42 on this one, 42 on this one, bonus, and this one just a little bit under 42, just a little bit over 42, but that's fine. Of course, that's the one that rocks. But that's okay. It is not a problem. We are going to fix this, or we're not going to fix it. It just doesn't matter when we're doing something like this, okay? Now, as I said before, these legs, we're going to use these legs to cover over this seam so nobody can see it. And then this one is going to go like this. See that? And nobody would know they're there. Now, if you notice, this screw, if you go perpendicular to the wood, it's going to go through this piece of timber and through this piece of timber. Can you see that? But you can see that now. It's going to go through both pieces of timber. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it in at an angle. And not only will that help pull the wood towards us, it's also not going to pierce out through on through the back side of the leg. A little bit more glue. Put that on all the gluing surfaces we can, because the glue is doing more to hold this together than the screws are. So we've got that in there. I'll show you. That in there, and that's covered up. Not only covered up the screws, but it's also covered up that seam on this side. So we're going to pop the screw in at a bit of an angle, making sure we don't fall off and pierce ourselves. That's one in like that. Check that's flush with the top. Perfect. Right, so we'll get the other ones done. I'll bring you around here so you can see how I'm doing that. We started off here. Now we're going to put it at an angle because it's already pulled into the wood. That's going to work for us. Then what I'm going to do is screw it in here. Maybe you'll see me do it, or maybe you'll just see the gun. How did that work? Not very well, I don't think. I'll go and put you back over there. So there we have it then. Everything's nice and flush, which means that it doesn't wobble, doesn't move. Perfect. So now what we're going to do is nice and simple. We're going to get the middle section, slide that in there, and pop the bottom one on, and then screw that in. So what we'll do is they're just going to slide in there like this. Now you might have a little bit of resistance, but that's golden. Right, that reminds me. I made a mistake and I fixed it off camera, so I'll tell you now, because everybody makes mistakes, right? Anybody who told you that they don't make mistakes is lying. Something that I've tried to be really very transparent about is when I screw up. All right, if you watch some of my other videos, a lot of people take a lot of pleasure telling me that I've screwed up. It's okay, because I want everybody to understand that even, I say professionals, even people who get paid to do this, screw up all the time, right? So make sure that the seams are going to go in this edge. Now, we could glue that one down, but I don't think there's any need to, because we're going to glue this one in. You can see the mess I made of it, but that's okay, not a problem. We're going to go in here like this. Perfect, so let's get some glue on it. Slide this down. Don't worry about the glue, just wipe it off with your fingers. Shouldn't be a problem. Unless you're going to stain it, then it might be a little bit of an issue. If not, just wiping the excess off. The paint, once you put a second coat on there, it's going to be fine. Right, mess of that, didn't I? Maybe. Do you know what I should have done? I should have put glue on these and then slid this in. Always learning. Yeah, every day's a school day. So, now what we're going to do, screw these legs in. Okie dokie. There's our planter. Right, I'm quite pleased with that. It's not perfect, but for something that's just a bit of hand-sawn rough timber, I'm quite pleased with that. So, now let's talk about the top. You're going to have two options, right? When you're doing this, you're going to have a mitre, which is obviously like this, 45, which is what I've done on this one. See the mitres? Obviously they've opened up a little bit. Outdoor planter, I'm not too concerned about that. If you've got a chop saw or a mite saw, that's not going to be a problem. If you're hand sawing, that might be a little bit of an issue. Mitres with hand saws are not something I particularly enjoy. Like I said, I do this for a living, so for argument's sake, showing you guys, I'm going to do butt joints on the top in here, okay? On the top trim. So all we're going to do is we're going to measure both sides of this, 350, which is what we talked about earlier. Again, that's 350-ish. This is where we're at. What we've got is we've got two longer pieces, and I'm going to use these longer pieces to cover over these seams, all right? So they're not going to get seen. I'm going to line this up as best as I can. You might have a little bit of overhang on one of the edges. Again, it's construction grade lumber, right? So even though it says it's 25 mil, it might be 23 in places, might be 26, 27. It is what it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure in between here, make everything to fit. So we're at 257 there. Here we have 257 there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut two pieces at 257 and pop them in here, and I'll show you how we're going to put it all together. This one's going to go in there, and this one's going to go in there. And then that is, I'm happy with that. Do you want to have a look? Right, there we go, look. That's what it looks like from the top. So this one looks like this. This one looks like that. Which do you prefer? Do you prefer the butt joint? Do you prefer the mitre? The thing to remember with the mitre is, well, where am I? Is this is going to open up as the timber dries, right? It's just a fact of life. This is going to open up as well. It will look like it's supposed to be that because it's a butt joint. Right, so there's a couple ways that you can fix these on. I am one for not really having any fixings showing, especially when we've gone to all the effort to hide everything on here. This glue, the 502 stuff, well, working time, what they call working time, of around about 10 minutes. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a whole bunch of glue on here, like that, and then I'm going to sit these on with the faces that I want facing outside and all that sort of stuff. Put it on, give it a wiggle, put it on, give it a wiggle. And what I need to do is, as I put these ones in, I want a bit of glue on there, bit of glue on there, and then hopefully that will stop it from spreading too much. There we go. Now I'm going to leave that for about 10-15 minutes and we'll come back. Ready? 3, 2, 1, boom. So that's done then, is it? Right? They're fairly solid. They're not like cured, but it's fairly solid enough for me to turn it upside down because we do need to put a base into it. So we're going to gently place it on the top. We're going to measure in here. So we're at 255 and 255, right? So we're just going to use the last little bit of timber that we have left on the 8-foot piece and cut 2 pieces at 255. So let me go get them. So you see, we're going in at a 45-degree angle, so it's going to go through the edge of this timber, probably about 15 mil in, and into here. And in reality, the glue should be holding the joint. This is just a little bit of a stronger fixing there, look. I'm really pleased with how that turned out. What do you think? I really like it. I think it's a nice planter, really, you know, for a tenner or 10-15 quid plus your screws or whatever. But yeah, obviously this one I've sanded, this one I haven't because I said you need minimal tools. If you have a sander, that's great. I'll probably chuck the 80 grit all over this just to kind of smooth it all out. If you're looking at how to paint them, how to finish them, then the best thing that you can probably do is something like this, right? It's fence paint. I use it on my furniture, my outdoor furniture. I use it on my planters. It works great. It's super cheap. I think this whole 5 litres was maybe about £12 on offer. There's also this. This is like Fence Life Plus. I don't really like this. This is a bit like jelly when you open it up. It's a bit of a weird one to paint on, but again, what it's meant for is it's meant for rough sawn timber, so perfect for the both of these, okay? So what do you think to that then, right? Easy, cheap. You can do it with minimal tools like a handsaw, a few drill bits, some screws and a drill. I think it turns out great. It's a perfect project for somebody who's just getting into woodworking to try and get the kids involved, grandkids involved. Great thing to do on Father's Day, right, with the kids. Do something a little bit fun, and the kids will always remember building this with you. I guarantee it, right? It might just sow that seed in their head, and that is a beautiful thing. Please let me know what you think below. If you've got any suggestions on anything you'd like to see me make, especially on the cheap, let me know below. If you have any comments, any questions, again, drop them in below. If you could do the usual, the like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. You all have a great day. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you on the next one, all right?